All right, today I'm going to talk about Homeland Security, and even more in depth than that, how Homeland Security can affect the violent crime rate in the U.S. Because every single time we look at the news, every single time we hear anything on the radio, violent crimes are always on the rise. People don't want guns, but what I'm interested in is a different issue that a lot of people avoid or think differently on, and it's how our Homeland Security goes about making arrests and different kinds of procedures that go into that. What has happened over the past through statistics and what's happening now, and whether it's getting better or if it's getting worse. In the past, from 2014 to 2016, as everybody else knows, that is before President Trump was elected, and President Obama, specifically, wasn't as harsh on immigration laws. What we see from 2014 to 2016 is all the border states bordering Mexico all increased substantially in crime, violent crime. This is rapes, murders, arson, everything that's bad that you could ever think of. That's where the statistical data came from the FBI UCR data. Texas was on the rise at 5.3%, New Mexico on the rise at 6.3%, Arizona a whopping 14.6%, and California at 4.1%. Now that doesn't seem like really large numbers, but whenever you take down the total population of arrests, considering that most arrests are just for drug paraphernalia and ridiculous little small things, that is a really high spike in criminal activity. Now, whenever we move over to the total amount of arrests that were made in 2016 by ICE or Homeland Security, so you got Border Patrol, you got ICE, you have the FBI, you have everybody that's working in together that deals with Homeland Security. They report to them with this data. So the way that I organized this is I went to ICE, I went to the UCR of the FBI, and then I compared the data points. And from ICE, they claimed that in 2016 they had 110,104 total illegal alien arrests along the Mexican border. Now in 2017, whenever President Trump was elected, everybody knows that his biggest thing was immigration, and he wanted to be tougher on immigration. Well, we saw a 0.8% or 33,366 increase in arrests in 1 year. Again, that doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it's a substantial increase in arrests. That's 33,366 individual people being arrested crossing the border illegally. Now, whenever you look at the data from the FBI and that standpoint, the more people who are arrested that cross here illegally, there's a drop in the total nation's violent crime level, where the 0.8% comes into play, and it actually decreased in 0.8%, and an increase in the total of arrests at 33,366. 0.8% doesn't seem like a lot, but again, that's a decrease in violent crime because of stricter border laws. Aside from statistics and hardcore factual data, whenever the reason that to decrease violent crime, in my mind, and I'm starting at the Mexican border, is because the Mexican border has virtually no laws. It's a wasteland. Nobody really wants to be there unless they're trying to do something bad. Whenever you look at the Canadian border, Canada's got, they're very similar to the American culture. That's a better way of explaining it. Mexican culture versus the Canadian culture are much different. They're much more like us over in Canada. They have very strict laws. You can't even get into Canada unless you fly there or cross the U.S. border. And I don't think that anybody necessarily wants to come down to America from Canada just because of different government policies and the per capita, the total amount that they make there. They're a lot more better off than Mexico is. In Mexico, you see that they're connected directly to South America. They have little to no laws. They have tons of corruption. They are surrounded by violence. There's tons of poverty. There's every single reason why they would want to come over here, which is fine. However, the problem is whenever it's so easy to come here, you also get the bad people. You get the people that come from other countries that want to hurt the United States. So you can easily get terrorists that want to sit there and go through the Mexican border easily. You get people that are in drug cartels, and that's another thing that can decrease if we increase our borders and increase illegal arrests, is the drug problem that we see here in the United States. And it is also a statistical fact that drugs have the biggest play in violent crime. It is every single violent crime, whenever you put it together, they'll look to see if drugs were in play, and more times than not they are. So decrease in the cartels decreases drugs, decreases violent crime, decreases the amount of drugs that people are able to get their hands on. Whenever there's a normal person that wants to cross the border, they're surrounded by violence, they're surrounded by poverty their entire life, and that's just the culture that they've grown accustomed to. Here in the United States, we're fortunate enough not to have that culture. Does violent crime happen? Yes. Are gangs prevalent? Yes. Do bad things happen? Of course. But unfortunately, across the border, it's an everyday lifestyle for them. So for them to come over here and have to change immediately to the way that we live is a lot more difficult for them. And the way that we would handle a problem back at home, they usually would solve with violence. And, whether if it just starts off with hitting somebody or gets extreme to hitting them with a gun or shooting them with a gun. It's a huge issue. And whenever I get back onto the idea of terrorism, a lot of people kind of fall off the board there. They don't exactly understand what I mean there. We have such a good system here in the U.S. with our aviation department, the FAA, and tracking who's coming in and out as far as airlines go. Mexico doesn't, because their borders are not secure. They have low funding. They pretty much will let in whoever wants to come in, because it's a very broken system. So if somebody that really wanted to get here to the United States, that really wanted to hurt us from overseas, they could easily get to Mexico, get a coyote, figure out a tunnel system, figure out how to get here, and then get here, and we'd have no way of understanding or knowing their location or how dangerous they are. But that's kind of my overall spiel on how the Homeland Security, the increase of policies, the stricter policies, more arrests, hiring more border patrol, deportation, building a better border security system per se, would substantially decrease the problems that we see here in the United States. It would decrease drugs, it would decrease violence, it would decrease the amount of guns that cross the border, and it would decrease the cultural clash that we see constantly going on in all of these border states. All of this crime is not all due to the illegal immigration. However, a great deal plays into it. And the best way that we can do that as a society, as an individual person, is to go out and go vote. Go out and vote on the policies that you want. If you see a problem, then you need to be able to be heard. You need to make sure that somebody understands that this is where you stand. And Homeland Security is a big issue that we're having nowadays. So, best way to get that done is to vote.